And I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And if something is going wrong, you can't hear me or something, feel free to just put your audio on and shout, and I'll hear you. There's not too many of us, so I'll hear you. Okay. So, why are you here? The assumption you're applying for the genre lab or you're applying for any other film lab and you want to get prepared, or you're thinking about applying. This is useful because submissions are a ton of work. Um, they are exhausting. Everyone's doing all other kinds of stuff at the same time, and you want to make sure that you're not wasting not just your time, but your money because submissions tend to cost money as well. So the more you're prepared, the more you know what you need for these applications, just the better off you are in not wasting any of your resources, and you want to get your movies made. So an important question, uh, first off, is your project a good fit for the lab? I know that it's very tempting to want to apply to many of them, but making sure that your work makes sense for the lab is always a good way to start off. So just asking what kind of lab is this? What projects have previously been accepted? Usually that's on labs' websites. So that's always a good thing to check out. Have you spent time on your materials? And have you received feedback on your applications from trusted colleagues? Just kind of questions to ask before applying. And something with the genre lab, which we sort of talked about in our other session, but then, clarifying, is your project a genre film? Managing expectations. I like to talk about this. It's very difficult. Everybody gets sad when they don't get in. I get very sad when I don't get into labs. But it's helpful to know how competitive the program is, how many projects get accepted. Um, have you applied previously and maybe figured out what you need to change? What other programs are similar to it? Get information. Even like chatting with other filmmakers who've applied or who've gotten into it is just a good way of kind of managing expectations, which is a stressful part of being a filmmaker. So I'm just going to go over what the genre lab is um, for people who are maybe specifically looking to apply for the genre lab, but also every lab kind of has these specifications, so it's just good to know. So the Genre Lab is entering its 11th iteration, used to be from our dark side. And it's an accelerator program and a development lab designed to support the development of effective finance, packaging, and pitching strategies for feature genre film creators whose work and projects are at an advanced stage of development. So, one thing to keep in mind is that for labs of all kinds, they will be for projects at a certain stage. Now, maybe it's a range. In the case of the genre lab, we say for advanced stage of development, but we do take projects that are in early development. So that's something I'm happy to answer questions about that later, but that's something to keep in mind is your project at the right stage for the lab? Um, so this is for the genre lab is for genre films, which people have a lot of questions about, but broadly, westerns, horror, sci-fi, fantasy, thrillers, we can talk about that. Dark comedies, surreal, magical realism. That's like a big basket of genre film. And over the past like 5 to 10 years, the meaning of what horror and genre is has kind of changed. So that's another thing to just kind of keep in mind. Project qualifications. So specifically, projects must be an advanced stage. So what we mean by that, full script, director and producer attached, lookbook, estimated budget, financing plan. And even within those qualifications, we have taken projects where the producer is not attached yet, although the projects with a producer get priority versus what this program used to be, which was for projects at a treatment level, so much earlier stages of development. So just a really important thing to keep in mind. And again, this is for feature films, so no series, no short films, no web series, like just features. And why? Well, because part of this market is that you do story development and it's mostly pitch practice and really nailing your pitch so that you can pitch at Frontiers, which is a market. So the whole point is that we want to make sure that the projects that we select are market ready because there's really no point in putting your work out there in a market environment if it's not ready yet. So another thing to keep in mind is like, what's the goal of the lab that I'm applying for? And is my project at the right stage for that, for the goals of the lab? So, project qualifications continued. Another thing to keep in mind is what is the mandate of the organization that is sponsoring this lab or this film program that you're applying for? So, with GEMS, we have a really particular foundation. So, I'm going to read it because equity and diversity is just a big part of our mandate. So, understanding what the mandate is for whatever you're applying for will not only help you get in, but it'll help you shape your materials um, so that it gets noticed. And happy to answer any questions about that too later. So GEMS welcomes applications from all creators who are equity deserving on the basis of gender. We believe in fostering an inclusive, equitable, and accessible environment where all participants and staff feel valued, respected and supported. We are dedicated to building a program that reflects Canada's diversity and elevates equity deserving voices, Indigenous, Black people of color, people with disabilities, and 2S LGBTQIA plus people are strongly encouraged to apply. So again, if you fit into any of these categories, strongly encouraged to apply. You know, for various programs, certain groups of people are strongly encouraged to apply, and that's always good to keep in mind. Again, feature length, um, producer and director attached, preference given to projects with a producer. And I've already answered a couple questions about this via email, and it's writers and directors must be women and gender diverse. And that goes for the Genre Lab, and that goes for co-writers and co-directors. So all these sort of specificities are just important so you don't waste your time applying to certain labs. First draft scripts are eligible. This isn't here, but also first-time filmmakers. This program is hugely for first-time filmmakers. Another thing with labs, sometimes they're targeted for first-time filmmakers. Sometimes they're for filmmakers who are maybe doing their second or third feature. Another important thing to check out. And alumni are strongly encouraged to apply to the program. And let's say you were in the program last year, you can apply for the next year. You don't have to wait a certain amount of years to re-enter the program. It's for Canadian citizens and permanent residents only. So just some specifics, and all programs have specifics. So, okay, so we're just going to jump into submission materials now. And one thing, as someone who's been on the back end of festivals and markets and such for a really long time, one thing people tend to forget more often than I would like is how the submission materials should be delivered. So no matter what you're applying to, just make sure that you are submitting the materials in the way that they have been asked for, because frequently the materials are going through a jury system and they're going to be moved around and sent to different people. And if they're not how they should be and where they should be, it could easily get lost or people won't even look at them. So it seems so simple, but really, really read those instructions. And for example, for the Genre Film Lab, everything that you need to submit has to be in a single PDF. So everything combined in a single PDF. That's for the Genre Lab. Okay. So I'm just going to take a sip of water, but I'm going to go through the basics of the submission materials for the Genre Lab now, which for the most part are pretty basic for a lot of film labs, and they're super important. Logline. I love log lines. They're so simple, they seem so easy, but they are so not. So logline states the genre of the film, protagonists, their goal, and their main obstacle. Super simple, 1 to 2 sentences. So we should understand the genre of your film. Who is the main character? What is their goal, obstacle, conflict, basics? Okay, we're just gonna do this thing that I like to do in this session is I have 3 logline examples and I'm gonna read each one and then you can either shout it out or yeah, shout it out if you know um, what the film is that this logline is referring to. So the first one is following the death of their grandmother, the Graham family begins to unravel cryptic and terrifying secrets about their lineage, steering them towards an inescapable and horrifying destiny. Who knows what this film is? Does anyone know what this film is? It is honestly, this is not a very good log line. And I think this actually speaks to the fact that the film, in and of itself, as a story, is not that unique. And we can debate this later, but this film is Hereditary. So this is Ari Aster's Hereditary, which is interesting because when you're thinking about your film and you're thinking about your log line, I mean, Hereditary has a lot of very basic elements that so many genre films have. And when you read the log line, it doesn't really stand out. So whatever, no hate on that film, but it's not like a super unique log line, and you can yeah story you can see it in the log line. Okay, this other one maybe a little more obvious. A family caretaking a remote haunted hotel descends into madness and violence as the father's supernatural possession threatens to destroy his wife and son. So this one,
The Shining.
boom. Okay. Obvious. Yes, exactly. You a mile away, we know that that's The Shining. And I mean, this is like you get that it's a psychological, supernatural horror film. You get the location and you get the main characters that are involved and you understand the arc. It's all there. Okay, this last one. A fading celebrity uses a black market cell replicating drug to create a younger, more perfect version of herself, but the process has dangerous and escalating complications.
The Substance.
Exactly. Another pretty clear, I mean, I would also argue that both The Substance and The Shining are incredibly straightforward. I mean, part of why those films work is they're so clear, they're so straightforward. Um, and you can see in the log lines. So, all right. Moving on from log line. Okay. Synopsis. So annoying, so important. Again, as someone who has spent so much time looking at people's materials, the synopsis is, I want to say, the thing that people kind of underestimate its importance quite frequently, and it's hugely important. It introduces the main characters, summarizes the main plot, the conflict, overall arc of the story, beginning, middle, and end, and uses words that reveal tone, genre, and intended audience. So when I read your synopsis, I want to know who the main characters are. I want to know where they're starting and where they're ending, the central conflict. If your film is a satirical horror film and there's comedic elements of it, then your synopsis should be a bit funny. It should have that kind of tone. So, whatever tone you want your film to have, you should try and get that into your synopsis in some way, and have us already have a clear sense of of the genre and the tone. Um, of course, there's different lengths of synopses, and when you're applying for labs or putting materials together, you'll always be given a character count or a word count. 500 words, I believe, is the genre lab. I think This is just my opinion. It is always a really good idea. It's also good creative development wise to be prepared with a paragraph synopsis. So just a short, like 100 to 200 word short synopsis. And then the one that we're asking for, like a pager, a 1 to 2 page synopsis. And the one thing that people frequently forget to do is tell us the ending. And I'm just me, so take it or leave what I'm saying in a lot of ways, but the synopsis, the log line and the synopsis are things that jury members read before getting to your script, and everybody's tired. Everybody has a lot of things going on, so they're gateways to your material. So have them be clear. Have me read your beginning. I like have a clear understanding of where your character starts and where they end in your synopsis versus kind of letting us go with a cliffhanger that takes us like 3/4 of the way through your film, which most synopsises do. Like really try and give us a full understanding of your film in your synopses because it serves as kind of like a map that people have when beginning to read your script. So we can talk more about that, but definitely don't underestimate the synopsis because it's such a good exercise too for clarifying your own story. Okay, bios and credits, easy, but people surprisingly jumble this up. So bios and credits includes the names of the participants in your project. So directors, writers, producers, followed by a short description of each member's previous credits. For the genre lab, it's 3 credits max and their relevant experience. So usually, again, labs will give you a word count, but I've seen people literally attach their IMDb page, and nobody wants that. So a tight little paragraph, and just be sure that it's the person's full name. And I think sometimes you get kind of because you're so in the project, people forget to put clearly what the person's role is. So if they're a writer director, name writer director, name producer, name EP. So just being really clear that when we look at your materials, we know exactly who's doing what. So yeah, do list specific role, do not list full CVs. Um, you know, I'm kind of like, don't list irrelevant experience, but if there's some fun thing that's not a professional thing, but makes sense for why this person is attached to the project, I'm not opposed to jokes and bios. But read the room for the kind of lab that you're applying for. Um, okay. Um, so this is an important one. So budget and financing plan. Now, different labs ask for different things. You'll find a lot of labs and markets will ask for the top sheet of a budget, not necessarily a full budget. Some will ask for a full budget. For the genre lab, we're not asking for a full budget. We're not asking for a top sheet of a budget. It's a budget number. So when we say estimated budget range, it's how much do you think your movie is going to cost? Period. Like it's just a number. Um, so again, making a budget is a ton of work. So it's good to know what you need budget wise, numbers wise, and all that for the labs you're applying for. So that's the budget. Happy to answer questions about that. But for the genre lab, it's very simple. Um, Financing plan, we do ask for that, and it's really important. Again, it's not a very complicated financing plan, but it's here, I'll just read this. Intended sources of funding, hard versus soft, including the percentage of each source that each source will contribute to your overall budget. So, in essence, your financing plan is like a pie, and you have your estimated budget, and you tell us, so these are the different pieces of the pie that will give us our estimated budget. grants, tax credits, hard money, soft money, all of those things. And again, you don't have to have any money in place for the genre lab. Some labs you might have to have 20% of your financing or 30% financing in, but you don't have to have that. We just need to know that you've thought through how you will put together the financing. And let's say you do have financing in place, you can just have a column that says acquired, and then you can list which financing has been acquired. And if you do have acquired financing, which is awesome, just attach like an LOI or any agreements so that we have proof of the financing agreement. And then here are just some numbers for thinking about how you're budgeting your film. There's micro budget and there's ultra low budget, um, low budget. So IATSE currently considers any feature film budgeted between 0 and 15 million as low budget. The Genre Film Lab takes low budget films. Average budget for a Canadian feature is roughly 3 to 5 million. That's a CMPA stat from like a couple years ago. But I'll just say it's a very good thing to know, what range of budget does the lab that you're applying for usually take? Um, for the Genre Film Lab, we've taken projects anywhere from 250, 500K, although that was years ago. We tend to take projects 500 to 750K higher now, to roughly 5 million. So somewhere in there, usually around the 1 to 2 million range. And I will also note, because the Genre Lab is focused on emerging filmmakers, and that's for directors and producers, we'll frequently have emerging producers who come onto a project, start the lab, and will work through budget concerns in the lab itself. So it's another thing to know if the program you're applying for, um, what parts of your sort of project are they there to develop? And in a project like the Genre Lab, there is feedback from industry mentors to help with um, putting together your producing team to help you put together like a more advanced financing plan or something like that. So there's producing support in the lab as well. Um, Okay, so goals of the program. When applying to most labs or markets, they'll ask, what do you want to get out of this? And that's another section that filmmakers tend to kind of slough off. Like, why does it matter? And it really matters because it shows that you know where you're at with your project. And it also shows that you know what your project needs, which is super important. So I'll just read this, but. Outline your goals and motivations for participating in the Genre Lab or any lab. So, what do you hope to achieve in the program? What's your overall project timeline? What types of partners are you currently seeking? And that's really a big question is do you know the kind of partners that your project needs to kind of take it to the next level? So if you're an emerging producing team and you know that you need production support, then that's just an excellent thing to write when you apply because it shows that you know that that's where your project needs a significant amount of help. So personal statement. Director or artistic statement and describing your relationship to your content. So different applications will ask for different things. These three things, although they are similar, are not the same. So it's always important to read through the details of all of these, um, of everything that's being asked of you. And I'm going to break these down because they're important. Um, so a personal statement, um, Tell us about yourself as creators and share anything that you feel would be helpful for us to know as we evaluate your submission, the development of your project, your career, your journey in the world. This includes any barriers you feel you have had to overcome or still face in the development of your work. So that's something that I believe that this lab asks for, but I've seen it in other labs as well. And that's less focused on your project, and that's really the lab wanting to know about who you are as a creator. And if it's a lab that is concerned with uplifting um, certain groups of people, then it's extra important that you answer a question like that honestly, because it's what that lab cares about and it's what they're looking for. So, personal statements, super important. Um, what you'll see, and something I'll say is such an important part is like, yes, the genre lab, Frontiers, so many film markets are looking for top-notch talent and top-notch creative work and unique storytelling and unique voices, but so much of that comes from being able to see that person behind the material and to understand where this story comes from, why they need to tell it, who they are. So I really think you should never kind of underestimate how important that personal connection is. And something like a personal statement is important for helping people see who you are, which will again go into how people read your script and look at your materials. So another thing that's different but similar, a director statement or an artistic statement. Describe your creative vision for the project. What themes are you most interested in exploring in your work? What do you want the audience to take away from your film? How do you envision the realization of this script in terms of story, character, tone, visual style? Who do you see as the audience? Why are you passionate about telling this story now? So these are questions that are more related to a specific director's statement, which is personal in the sense of where does this story come from? Why are you basically the only one who can tell this story this way? And because it's a director's artistic statement, what is this film going to look like, right? So it's not, so it's who are you and why are you telling this and how is your vision going to come to life? What are some elements of that creative vision? How are you going to bring that to us? And who's it for? Audience. I personally, um, I personally put a lot of emphasis on director statements because it's just it shows that even if a project is at a really kind of nascent early stage of development, like let's say for something like the Genre Lab, where you can submit a first or second draft of a script, like an early draft, even if the script is not where it needs to be and there's a lot of work to be done on it, if you're able to convey the importance of the story, the uniqueness of the story, that goes a really long way. So here, again, specifically your relationship to your content, which is a little bit different even. So if your concept touches upon Indigenous traditional language, linguistic or cultural intellectual property, or content from equity deserving communities, please describe your relationship to this content and how appropriate protocols will be observed or addressed. How are you working to make sure that the characters and world of your film are authentically represented and that the community you are writing about has a voice in the creative process? So, this is something that we do ask for in the Genre Lab. I've seen it in a ton of other labs and markets as well. And this really speaks to, like, specifically if your story is about a certain community, and it is or isn't a community that you're a part of, to explain that relationship. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that later. But again, that's also important. And I will say that we've seen projects in the lab not um, have trouble with the jury because when the jury has looked through materials, they haven't actually been able to understand the filmmaker's relationship to the communities that they were writing about. So it could very well be that you're a member of that community or you have a particular relationship or access to it. But again, it's really important to be clear because all we have and all these juries have is just your materials. So just make sure that that information is there. Okay, lookbook, pitch deck. So in a lot of ways, lookbook, pitch decks, people are very specific about these worlds. I throw them around. They're an image-based document that showcases the world and language of your film. It's a sales material. It's to show other people your film before it's been made. Um, Now, a lot of lookbooks and pitch decks overall will include all of the things we just talked about. So they'll have your log line, your synopsis, your bios, your director statement, all in this beautiful visual PDF file. Um, there's also just like a lookbook page or just like a page of images. So I'm gonna read these things, but all to say that for something like the Genre Lab, you don't have to put your synopsis, your log line, and all of those other things into a big visual deck. You just need to have one page of images that serve to showcase the visual language of your film. So it's a very, because lookbooks and pitch decks take time, they take resources. We're not asking that for the submission, but for this lab, it's one page of images. So again, it's important to keep in mind when you're applying to different labs, like what do they mean by pitch deck, by lookbook, and just get that information. So I'll just read these couple of little explanations. Um, so, lookbook, an image and text-based document that showcases the world and visual language of your project. Sometimes it can just be images, in which case that would be specified. A professional film lookbook is a visual blueprint for your movie's style, tone, and atmosphere, allowing you to showcase your unique vision to prospective stakeholders. Again, it's a sales document. It's a document created in the pre-production phase specifically for others to review so they can download your vision into their minds. A lookbook is a carefully crafted assembly of images that illustrates a creative vision for a movie or TV show series. It's usually put together inside a PDF, and it has a narrative flow and takes the reader through the project's look, feel, and intended execution. So it's like a mini booklet that, in a lot of ways, that usually contains all the materials that we talked about. And so, what I'm going to do, because we're recording this now, I'm going to show you some lookbook examples afterwards. So don't let me forget that. I'll show you some examples uh, at the end of this. And just a reminder for the Genre Lab, it's just one page of images. I just want to see, make sure there's nothing that I forgot. Um, and I just want to add sort of like sometimes there's little specifics with different applications, and you just really want to make sure to respect them because something so small as for the Genre Lab, for examples, we have a 120-page limit on the scripts, and then we won't read them if they're longer. So something super important to pay attention to. Um, Also, sometimes labs will not allow you to submit the same project twice. In those cases, then you want to make sure that your project is really ready because you won't be able to submit it again. But in the case of the Genre Lab, and I've actually seen projects have like a great success with this, is they have submitted, they didn't get in one year, they submitted again the next year. And all that we ask is that you specify in your materials just a paragraph where you say, we applied last year, we didn't get in, and this is the work that we've done on the project that's changed it. And now we think it's ready. So it's really just that you specify what has changed in your materials or in your script. So again, just these like small but very important because it just sucks to do a lot of work and then have a small thing kind of derail your application. So tips, I can stop talking soon. Just go for it. Most of the time, just do it. Unless it costs a lot of money or you can't apply again, in which case, think about it. Yes, how much is a submission fee? Money matters. So if your project isn't ready, don't submit and just give yourself time. Um, it sucks sometimes to get feedback from people, but having trusted people look at your materials is super important. And labs and markets are all about getting feedback from people, so you might as well just start getting it. Get used to it. Again, understand the program you're applying to. Sometimes it's even helpful if it's possible for you to like reach out to other filmmakers who've been a part of it, sort of just get their 2 cents on things. Um, Proofread because nobody likes mistakes, even spelling mistakes in your scripts. Please, please proofread your scripts. And then submit and move on. And that's it. That's my basic tips. Um, Here, okay, these are mostly what we've went through all of this. Yeah, the basic submission materials for the genre lab, project title, contact information, logline, synopsis, bios, budget, lookbook goals, all super clear in one PDF. And again, I mean, what's good about applying to labs and markets with your film is once you apply to one, even if you don't get in, you've already started developing your materials, which is excellent. So it's never really a waste of time. It can be a waste of money sometimes, but it's never a waste of time because you're developing your materials constantly. Um, and I will say that submissions open for the lab tomorrow, and we have early bird, regular deadline, late deadline, and that's all on Film Freeway. And if you have any questions, I mean, we're going to talk about them now, but Jara at gemsvancouver.org is me, is Gems is us. So just send us questions. And we are always there to answer them. So I'm gonna stop sharing now, and I'm gonna stop recording.